We are locked in an all-or-nothing fight for Australia's very soul. On one side are the Australians who built this country, the battlers, the people from the bush, the people who contributed to this country with their hard work and their blood, sweat and tears. The diggers who fought to defend the rights and principles on which this nation was founded. The Australians, now left disenfranchised, as their country has changed for the worse right in front of their eyes. On the other side are the rabid far left, the Marxists, the communists, the socialists, the toxic Labor Party and the hateful Greens. The hypocrites who bring hordes of people here in the middle of an unprecedented housing and rental crisis. The idiots who flood Australia with people who mean us deliberate harm, who despise our values, who laugh at our complacency and who take advantage of our leaders' weakness. Today it's been revealed the hideous Iranian regime actively organised and orchestrated crimes on Australian territory against Australian people. What is absolutely certain in this space is that Iran obviously had fertile ground to plant and grow its hatred in Australia. This is because current immigration policy allows people who nurture these hatreds to come here and to commit these crimes. Labor has given 3,000 people from Gaza permission to come here. That's 3,000 potential agents for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. We should immediately and permanently ban immigration from any countries where this hatred prevails. We cannot afford to take any risks with the safety of the Australian community. Immigration has gotten so out of control that many Australians no longer recognise their own country. This isn't just about housing or jobs. This mass migration is tearing at the fabric of who we are. When I see our flag flying, I see the sacrifice of those who built and defended our nation. It should unite us all, but Labor's agenda is to divide us, to destroy our culture, our identity, and our love for our country. If we lose that unity, we lose Australia itself. This is the true cost of mass immigration, the slow destruction of our nationhood. Labor told us they were going to bring the numbers down. They lied. They've brought about 1.5 million people here since they were elected. Today, Labor is bringing 1,544 people per day. That's more than 560,000 a year. Where are they supposed to live? Where are struggling Australians supposed to live? In the past 3 years, Labor has effectively dumped 1.5 million people into our housing market, onto our health and education systems, our roads, our waters, even adding 12 million tonnes a year to our emissions. Australians are left in the cold while Labor just waves more people through the gate. And make no mistake, this is no accident. It's deliberate, it's intentional. It isn't about a skill shortage or education exports. It's about importing voters and keeping Labor in power. It's about Labor remaking Australia in Labor's perverted image. It's not the politicians and the bureaucrats paying the price. It's ordinary Aussies paying the price. Higher rents, lower wages, homelessness, poverty and a unique culture envied around the world being chipped away piece by piece. If you want an end to this crime against Australia, if you want an end to out-of-control immigration, then you stand with One Nation and you stand with me. If you want a safe and united Australia, one people under the Australian flag, you stand with One Nation. We must make sure immigrating to Australia is a privilege to be earned, not an entitlement. Immigrants must have fluent English and definitely no burqas. We must enforce the law and deport the 75,000 people who've breached their visas and the 100,000 failed asylum seekers who were told to go home but haven't. No excuses, no endless appeals, no loopholes. We must cut the numbers drastically. One Nation's policy is to cap immigration to approximately about 130,000 per year, numbers we can actually accommodate. And when we can, then we can look at increasing those numbers over a period of time. We have no problem with immigration that serves the national interest. We acknowledge this is a country built on immigration, and we acknowledge the immigrants who have adopted our values and contributed to our country. We must shut down the rorts and the backdoor channels. We must put Australia back in charge of who comes here. We must withdraw from the UN Refugee Convention, reintroduce temporary protection visas, and refuse entry from nations that foster extremist ideologies incompatible with Australian life. It's basic common sense, it's fairer, and it's what most Australians want. Yet our politicians tend to forget about that, and I think they're living in their own world and don't really understand how Australians are struggling out there with the cost of living. High immigration is a cause for it. And yet they are on about these renewables and to put the carbon emissions. Why would you bring in so many people into the country if you worry about your carbon emissions and the Paris Agreement that you've signed? If you're bringing over 1,500 people a day into the country, it doesn't make sense. As I said, 12 million tonnes a year you're adding to it. Why would you bring in such numbers when it's affecting the housing, the rental accommodation, services, health, education, nursing homes, roads, infrastructure, everything, you name it, everything. And yet the Australian people are fed up with it. They've had a gutful of it. And yet you keep bringing it in. You have no regard for the Australian people. And to hear you go on about the housing issue in this parliament and say you're going to put up 1.2 million houses, what an absolute joke you are. What an absolute joke. I cannot believe this. And you believe the rubbish that you're telling the Australian people. You actually believe it. I cannot, to listen to the Labor senators and how they get up and espouse all this, it's just an absolute ridiculous joke. And Australians feel they've been stripped of their own identity. They're ashamed, that they're ridiculed by even their own councils if you fly the Australian flag. It's all right to see the Palestinian flag out in these protest rallies and all these other, even Hamas flags, terrorist flags. But, people just feel the point of flying the Australian flag. On Sunday, there is supposed to be this march for Australia. For those Australians out there that do want to go out and have their say and wave the Australian flag, good on you. I congratulate you because you're standing up for the values that you feel have been stripped from you by governments, whether it's this government or previous governments, former governments. You just feel that you're not being listened to. And this country is not the country that I grew up in. I'm ashamed of where we're headed. All this wokeness, the escalating crime, the cost of living, high electricity costs, the decline in our moral values that is happening, all this transgender rubbish and what's going on with women, spaces, it's just absolutely disgusting. And so many of you support it here. Where are your morals and your principles and your values? I can't understand it. That we're supposed to represent the Australian people. The decline that I see in my nation, and I feel sorry for those men and women that have fought and sacrificed their lives to give us the democracy and give us a nation that we should be also proud of. All I can do is keep fighting for the Australian people to the best I possibly can, to keep raising these issues, to bring awareness of what is happening in our country. And I stand by my fellow Australians with pride and dignity and with love for this country. And I will continue to fight for the Australian people to the best of my ability.
The Senate stands adjourned and will meet again tomorrow at 9 a.m.